coming up.
Is that the Prime Minister is trying to distract from the fact that he has an ongoing revolt in his caucus looking to overthrow him. So it's no wonder why he's doing this, but certainly if he continues, as my colleague said, to weaponize this, then he should release the names.
I also didn't know hurt feelings could be point of orders, because that's what it seems like the Liberals keep
Point of
doing
order
now.
again, Mr. Chair. Don't,
Ms. Kalita,
please
point of
don't.
order, please.
It's not nice.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
So pursuant to Standing Order 106 Sub 4, the committee commences consideration of the request to undertake a study of recent events surrounding the expulsion of diplomats from the Government of India and the situation of foreign interference in Canada. I will pass the floor to Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning to committee members. I just first of all want to start off by thanking everyone who joined with me in signing the 106-4 letter. As you can imagine, it's pretty rare that we get unanimous support for an emergency meeting, but I think the revelations from the RCMP that were delivered to the Canadian public on Thanksgiving Monday were nothing short of explosive, and I think they demand this committee's attention. And with that in mind, I would like to move the following motion. That pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study concerning the electoral interference and violent criminal activities carried out by agents of the Government of India, as identified by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians report and the RCMP's report from October 14th, 2024, and the subsequent expulsion of 6 diplomats from the Government of India. As a part of this study, the committee hold no less than 6 meetings, ensuring an equal distribution of time for witnesses, and invite the following ministers, senior officials, and expert witnesses from impacted communities and academia to provide briefings. 1. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Melanie Joly. 2. The Minister of Public Safety, the Honourable Dominic LeBlanc. 3. The RCMP Commissioner, Mike Duhem. 4. National Security and Intelligence Advisor, Natalie Drouin. 5. Experts from Canada's South Asian community. 6. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown and any former leadership candidates of the 2022 Conservative Party leadership race. And 7. National security subject matter experts. With that, Mr. Chair, the motion is so moved. I hope copies have been distributed to members, and I will give my time back to the chair. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I may need unanimous consent to be allowed to speak, but I have had a top secret security briefing from Natalie Drouin and from the new head of CSIS, Daniel Rogers, and I'd appreciate an opportunity to support the study and also to suggest a reason that beyond the one that Alistair just mentioned for why it was that the RCMP had to go forward and make this information public, because there's a larger context that has to do with having to disclose in the criminal activities that criminal charges that have already been brought.
Thank you, Ms. May. We go now to Ms. Dancho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As has been past practice, when a motion is not provided to members to review in advance, you have provided a 5-minute recess to review. So I'd ask for that 5-minute recess to review the motion, please.
That sounds reasonable. We will suspend for 5 minutes. We carry on with Ms. Dancho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And certainly the allegations of the RCMP are extremely concerning and must be taken very seriously by all parliamentarians and certainly by this committee. And the allegations of what India has done on Canadian soil represent an outrageous assault on Canada's sovereignty and are completely unacceptable. Foreign interference from any country, as we know, including from India, must be put to a stop. The first job of the Prime Minister and Canadians and the Canadian government is to keep citizens safe from foreign threats. That is the first job of the Prime Minister and the Canadian government. And the first job of the official opposition, of course, is to hold the government accountable for their ability or lack thereof to prevent foreign interference and to keep Canadians and people in Canada safe from foreign threats. And we certainly expect the full criminal prosecution of anyone who has threatened, murdered, or otherwise harmed Canadian citizens or people on Canadian soil. And the Public Safety and National Security Committee, as we know, has the responsibility to look promptly into this matter in a professional manner and thoroughly on behalf of Canadians and all those who have suffered in Canada as a result of the federal government failing to prevent foreign interference over these last number of years. So, Mr. Chair, I just did want to mention that the Conservatives on this committee and the official opposition at large certainly take this matter very seriously and are deeply concerned that the situation under the Liberal Prime Minister continues to worsen for Canadians. It is shocking to learn that there are, as per the RCMP, 13 individuals who are facing an imminent threat, as bad as murder potentially, from a foreign government, notably from India. So we are very seized with this issue as Conservatives, and certainly on this committee we are, of course, reviewing the motion put forward by Mr. McGregor. We thank him for bringing forward his 1064 letter, and of course we're keen to sign it so that this committee can look into this matter very thoroughly. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to include my thoughts on this. I believe my colleagues would like to as well.
We know all this information, given the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar from last year. I do also want to point out the fact that in the U.S., they went from allegations to arrests in 1 week, whereas under this Prime Minister, there was allegations and absolutely nothing happened after that. It kept the communities at large feeling very unsafe that these allegations were taking place and that this could happen to anybody. And no arrests were made immediately, just allegations were made. So that is another thing that I hope we can cover in this study. And given all of that, Mr. Chair, I'd also like to just add a few people onto the list, if my colleagues would agree to that. So I would like to amend some of the witnesses that we want here. The first is the Director of CSIS, Daniel Rogers. The second, the Deputy Minister of Public Safety of Canada, Sean Tupper. And the third, Deputy Minister of Global Affairs Canada. I think just to add those three would give us a better, it would give us a wider range to be able to study this. So that's if you want to call it a friendly amendment, that's what we're proposing. Thank you.
I'll take that as a simple amendment. So the discussion now is on the amendment. We have, the Director of CSIS, the Deputy, could you say those again?
The first is the Director of CSIS.
Yes.
Daniel Rogers. The second, Deputy Minister of Public Safety Canada, Sean Tupper. The third is the Deputy Minister of Global Affairs Canada.
Okay. Is there any discussion on adding those witnesses to the list? We'll go for a vote on that in that case.
I'm sorry, Chair. I think I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry. I missed who spoke there. Ms. Khalid,
This is.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm virtual. Thank you very much for that. And I understand and appreciate the witnesses that are being added here. The CSIS Director, the Deputy Minister for Public Safety, and the Deputy Minister for Global Affairs. I'm just wondering, given how the scope of this motion is being outlined, why do we need to add these witnesses to this list? And I'm hoping that the member who's moving this motion can help us clarify what exactly he is seeking to extract from these witnesses on his amendment.
I should just clarify that apparently we don't have a director of CSIS at the moment. We have an interim director, Vanessa Lloyd. So we'll consider that modification to be made. Okay. I'm sorry, who's next? Clarification by Mr. Hallett.
That's clarification. Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I think it's very self-evident the people that we're putting forward would more than likely have a direct impact, or they had direct link to anything that was happening at that time. And if we want to really study this issue of foreign interference, I think it's important to hear their voices in this debate as well. So, and they do have the expertise, as we know, to answer some of these questions, because they are in direct link with information that could be helpful in this. So I will be, and I'll just I'll end it off there.
We saw this very coordinated effort through Indian media channels and by the government of India, frankly, to engage in disinformation campaign. This followed the announcement that 6 Indian diplomats and consular officials would be expelled from Canada to ensure that Canadians and diaspora communities are protected from the acts of political interference, violence, or intimidation on Canadian soil. What we've seen as a response from the Indian government is an attitude of deflection and denial, and just outright lying about the situation and what's happened. So I would amend it to include another bullet point in that list of the motion, something along the lines of witnesses to testify on the impact of the disinformation campaign. And I can leave it to Mr. McGregor maybe to propose that language, or to the clerk.
Okay, so your amendment. Your amendment, I understand, is to add to that list of bullet points a category of witnesses, which is, I'm sorry, say that again.
Witnesses to testify on the impact of the disinformation campaign by India.
As a category under point 7, maybe point 8, witnesses to testify as to the to misinformation campaigns. Is that correct?
So it's disinformation. There's a difference there. Disinformation is when it's actually by design.
Not misinformation. Okay. All right, we have an amendment on the floor. Any further discussion on Mr. Gahir's amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Gahir. Is there any more questions or discussion on this on the amendment? Sorry, on the motion as amended? Seeing none, I call a vote on this. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much. Motion is carried, and that wraps up our business. Thank you very much, Olive, and we are adjourned.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I had my hands up.
I apologize.
Thank you. Just related to the same subject matter that we have before us, I also want to just put one more motion on the record for colleagues to consider. It is related to the subject matter at hand. The clerk has digital and paper copies. So I'll read it out as follows. That given the RCMP report on violent criminal activities linked to agents of the Government of India from October 14th, 2024, the Hague Commission's identification of foreign interference activities by Russia, Pakistan, China, and Iran, and the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians' special report on foreign interference in Canada's democratic processes and institutions, the Chair reports to the House that the committee calls for all federal party leaders to apply for the appropriate security clearance level in the next 30 days in order to review classified information and take necessary actions to protect Canadians. Mr. Chair, I think it's important that we move this motion because all federal party leaders have now received security clearance to review unredacted briefings on this very serious matter, except for one. And I think it's high time that, given the revelations that we heard on Monday, that we present a united front. And I think it's incredibly important for this committee to report back to the House that we recommend this course of action. And I will leave it there, Mr. Chair. I think the motion is self-explanatory. Thank you.
This does relate to the matter at hand, I think, very directly, so I will consider it in order. And I see Mr. Lloyd wishes to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's our very strong contention as Conservatives that anyone, any member of Parliament, any member of our political parties that are colluding with foreign powers to advance the interests of a foreign nation's agenda in our country need to be named so that Canadians can know and be fully transparent and clear the good name of the Parliament of Canada, which has been sullied these past many months by innuendo and allegations that have been made without full evidence that we haven't seen. And it's the contention of the Conservative Party of Canada that we need to release all those names so that we can take appropriate action and move on. We strongly believe that that a motion like this, which attempts to force the hand of all federal leaders on the security clearance front, is an attempt to muzzle the leader of the opposition from speaking out on the very important issue of foreign interference. We have to remember, myself, I was raising the issue of foreign interference at this committee years ago, and we were assured repeatedly by ministers of this government that foreign interference was not taking place in Canada's election. We were being reassured that foreign interference was not serious in Canada. This was just 2 years ago. And due to leaks from CSIS and our security agencies, and we have now come to learn that that was not the case, that there has been widespread allegations of foreign interference. And sadly today, with the recent RCMP announcement on Monday, it's escalated to the lives of Canadians being threatened allegedly by a foreign government. And how has this been allowed to happen after 9 years? Like, I remember back in 2015 working in the previous government that this would have been unheard of, that foreign governments were threatening the lives of Canadian citizens. And yet after 9 years under this Liberal government, due to their complete lack of action and complete lack of proactive activity to protect Canada, that this has just been allowed to proliferate in this country. And it's not just allegations against India. There's a number of countries that see Canada as a completely soft target for foreign interference. And it's leadership. It's lack of leadership in Canada under this Liberal government, under this Liberal Prime Minister, who has now decided to try to weaponize the issue of foreign interference for his own political ends, to distract from the very real problems that his leadership is facing even within his own party, to try to weaponize the issue of national security for his own partisan ends. It's frankly, it's disgusting. I find it disgusting what this Prime Minister has done. And so I'll be moving forward with an amendment to this motion that we release the names of all members of Parliament, all parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered with, who have colluded, knowingly colluded with foreign powers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. So we have an amendment on the floor, and the discussion is on the amendment. We have Mr. Halen up next. Did you wish to speak on the amendment?
It's an amendment. He moved an amendment. So do we
I know.
get a new
I
list?
just said so.
It's a new list, is it not? Speaking list? We don't need to speak on it.
I'm asking if you want to speak to this amendment.
I'll speak to the amendment. Well, we want to go to a vote.
So there is a list of on the main motion as once it's done.
I'll wait for that.
And so I'll open it up. Any questions? Any speaking? Any debate on the amendment of Mr. Lloyd? And we see Ms. Dancho. I see Ms. May. She's had her hand up for a while. We'll start with Ms. May. Dancho. Khalid. And Ms. Khalid.
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to this. I feel duty bound as someone who is has top secret security clearance and is perhaps more aware of the legislative framework around the security of information, that I feel duty bound to speak to say that this motion would be very inappropriate and in fact would be calling on people who have access to top secret security information to break the law.
May we go now to Ms. Dancho?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's interesting, Ms. May's stories from her perspective when she's read the unredacted NSECU report to now seems to have changed quite a bit in tone and scope. So I just find that interesting that her perspective has changed just recent. So anyway, I would say, though, this this amendment to ensure that the names are released would be in line with a number of what our allies do. For example, the United Kingdom rightfully names and shames any members of Parliament who are acting in a treasonous manner or who are colluding with foreign countries to undermine the United Kingdom's national interest. And I do believe that Canada should be doing the same. And I agree with my colleague Dane Lloyd that otherwise, the Prime Minister seems to just be weaponizing this so-called secret information that he continues to talk about without actually saying the names to his own advantage. And I certainly would agree with the former NDP leader who, certainly won many more seats than the current leader of the NDP, and has said again just recently, I agree completely with Mr. Poilievre's decision not to take the bait. That is, he's referring to Mr. Trudeau's allegation, or Mr. Trudeau's claims. He said Trudeau has been trying for a year and a half to restrain what Pierre Poilievre can do by trying to say, come on, get this private briefing, and oh, by the way, then you'll be held to an official secret and you won't be able to talk about this anymore. So it seems notable and frankly formidable NDP former leaders would agree with Pierre Poilievre, our leader of the Conservative Party, that any effort to do this is really an effort to put him under some sort of gag order so he can't really do his duty to hold the Prime Minister accountable for matters of foreign interference. So it's interesting to see now under Mr. Singh that Mr. Singh is working hand in hand with Mr. Trudeau yet again to try to gag order Pierre Poilievre from being able to speak about this issue. So it's interesting that Mr. Singh recently made a big show of ripping up some so-called, it was really an informal coalition with the Liberal government, but it would appear now they're really helping Mr. Trudeau to carry water on the really shameless partisan politics he's playing in the foreign interference inquiry, which until this point has been quite a serious and respectable and professional undertaking until the Prime Minister decided to make some sort of ruthless and shameless political show and a circus out of the whole affair. And I think what's really important for this committee to remember, and certainly Canadians will, that the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, had to be dragged kicking and screaming into this foreign interference inquiry. You'll remember, Mr. Chair, that he had first denied there was any election interference from China, for example, denied anything was going on with the member of Don Valley North in that nomination. And yet here we are in a foreign interference inquiry, and not only is there clear interference from China, but also from India and from Iran and Pakistan and Russia. We have, in fact, at the worst point in history when it comes to foreign interference, and we've had the same Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, for 9 years. So what does that say about his leadership or lack thereof? And I would also point out that the person in this country most responsible for foreign interference and preventing it and keeping national security safe is the Prime Minister of Canada. And so if we've had the same Prime Minister of Canada, and now this has come to such a point that 13 individuals, the RCMP had to announce 13 individuals are in peril because foreign interference has gotten so bad, what does that really say about his leadership? So what's interesting to me is that in the foreign interference inquiry, which he's made a farce of with his recent partisan attacks, that he's really trying to do two things. Number one, distract from his failed record to prevent foreign interference in this country. The fact that he's created an environment that's worse than ever at any time in Canadian history of foreign interference, that other foreign adversaries and others feel that we are a weak country, that they can bully under Prime Minister Trudeau's so-called leadership. And the second thing, of course, Mr. Chair, is that the Prime Minister is trying to distract from the fact that he has an ongoing revolt in his caucus looking to overthrow him. So it's no wonder why he's doing this, but certainly if he continues, as my colleague said, to weaponize this, then he should release the names, because Canadians deserve to know who it is in Parliament right now or in the past who has been undermining the national interest on purpose to aid a foreign country. They absolutely deserve to know that, and those individuals need to be held accountable. And I would also say that it's interesting that he won't do so, and I wonder why that is. Well, perhaps it's because out of any party, it makes the Liberal Party look bad. Again, he was the one who denied that there was election interference from China, for example. He's the one who denied there was any issue here at all, and yet here we are. So he continues to deny that there's any issue there, but I would suspect that's why he's not releasing the names. So I think we could put this to bed. It's rapidly devolving into some McCarthy witch hunt as a result of the Prime Minister's actions, and I think we can easily clear this up today by releasing the names. Canadians deserve to know, and the Prime Minister should be showing leadership in this regard and ensuring that he's actually taking action on this intelligence. And I would say in the last thing, Mr. Chair, that it's not clear why we're taking intelligence if we're not able to utilize it to ensure that these individuals are held accountable. And if they're semi-witting or unwittingly knowing, then they should know, and they should be informed. And so I think it is imperative that Parliament learn who these people are, if any, and move forward with that information. And Mr. Chair, I'd also say that, again, the responsibility for national security lies with the Prime Minister. The only reason we are here is because he's failed to protect that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Gahir, please.
I think it's rich that the Conservatives are talking about this issue when their leader engages in willful blindness by burying his head in the sand and not getting top secret security clearance. He can quite literally get top secret clearance, learn the names of the people in his own party that are vulnerable or have been vulnerable to foreign interference, that have engaged with foreign governments, and then remove those names because he has ultimate power in his party. He can remove those names from his party.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. While I appreciate members of this committee thinking that the motion is out of order because they don't like it, that's not exactly how it works. And I think what we're seeing now here at this committee is that there's only one party in this country that is calling for the release of this name and for the release of these names, the names that the Prime Minister has alluded to, the names that we know are being kept secret, and everyone else is trying to work to hide the names. Particularly the changing stories of Miss May since before and after she read the briefings or she was briefed in. Now we see that the NDP. Are trying to distract from what was brought to this committee as a serious issue today, the serious issue of foreign interference by India, and they're now playing politics with it.
Can you imagine that there's people sitting in the House of Commons today that are not working in the best interest of Canadians? This can include anyone. Can you believe that a sitting member of the House of Commons could have major implications on trade deals, doing what's in the best interest of foreign governments and not in the best interest of Canadians?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Ms. Khalid, on a point of order?
Yes, thank you. I do take a lot of exception to the member calling the integrity of the members of Parliament in our Parliament into question with what he's saying. I take major exception to that.
Look, Mr. Speaker, we see once again the Liberals will do anything to distract away.
Point of order again, Mr. Chair. I don't appreciate if the member has points to raise on his motion, as is absolutely his right, please do so. Please don't try to call into question the integrity of the members that are in this chamber.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Was that Ms. Lansman?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Just want to remind the member that it's the Prime Minister himself at the inquiry that called into question the integrity of members of Parliament by naming parties and affiliations without actually putting the names down, and that's exactly what we're arguing here today.
Thank you to the great Melissa Lansman from Thornhill, our co-deputy leader, for that clarification. I also didn't know hurt feelings could be point of orders, because that's what it seems like the Liberals keep
Point of order
now.
again, Mr. Chair. Don't.
Ms. Khalid,
please
on a point
don't.
of order, please.
It's not nice. Make your arguments as the right of every parliamentarian in committees. Let's not call people names. Let's not go down this path. Let's be respectful, please, of everybody.
Thank you for your point of order, and point is well taken. Please, everybody, try to be polite to each other.
I'll continue, Mr. Speaker. Hopefully I'm not interrupted because of hurt feelings. But furthermore to our leader's letter to Justin Trudeau, furthermore, my Chief of Staff has received classified briefings from the government, and at no time has the government told me or my Chief of Staff of any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participating in foreign interference. This is in stark contrast of what the Prime Minister has alleged and what we've heard Ms. May flip-flop on from when she said she took the briefing to now and to what the NDP is claiming. Our leader goes on to say, if Justin Trudeau has evidence to the contrary, he should share it with the public. Now that he has blurted it out in general terms at a commission of inquiry, he should release the facts. But he won't, because he is making it up. Justin Trudeau is doing what he always does. He is lying. He is lying to distract from a Liberal caucus revolt.
Mr. Singh, it is inappropriate parliamentary language to refer to a member as lying.
I just want to get some clarification. I'm reading a letter that was sent to the Prime Minister.
Okay. It's not acceptable.
Thank you. I'll retract the lying, but I will say what our leader is saying in general is that Justin Trudeau is misleading. It's what he always does. He's distracting from a Liberal caucus revolt against his leadership and revelations. He knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere and help him win 2 elections. I'll make it clear one more time. Common sense Conservatives are asking for the names to be released immediately so that Canadians can feel safe once again on Canadian soil. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To make it very clear to my friend from Katona and St. Paul's and to Melissa Lansman as well, I haven't changed my position at all. I don't own any flip-flops.
As for the names of MPs who have been possibly working or colluding with, knowingly or unknowingly, and the leaders of the different parties, because there are Liberals on that list. I believe the Prime Minister also said NDPs, but I know he specifically mentioned Conservatives to make that political point, but there are Liberals on that list as well, and the leaders of those parties, with that information, if provided, the information is provided properly, can take action as they see fit. I also think that the information should be provided publicly. And I think it's, like I've said, that it is important that we get back to the very important issue of foreign interference in this country. Let's drop this kind of attempt at making political points here in this committee and work at taking steps of protecting Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Going on to Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to have the opportunity to address a few of the points that my Conservative colleagues have made, and I am going to do so in a respectful manner, and I'm not going to resort to petty insults. First of all, I raised this point because given Monday's revelations, I think it is incredibly important for Canada to show a united front. And right now, we're at a stage where the only federal party leader who is refusing to get top security clearance is Mr. Poilievre of the Conservatives. What the Conservatives are essentially asking us to do with their sub-amendment right now is to potentially put our own intelligence operatives at risk. And I think for anyone who sits at this committee, that is completely unacceptable. Again, these are not my words. These are words coming directly from the intelligence and security community. And they know this because they have heard those exact same words from those members at this committee table and in conversations they've had in private with those individuals. So, Mr. Chair, I am going to propose a sub-amendment to Mr. Lloyd's amendment to my motion. Now, his amendment was tacked on to the end, and it simply read that we release the names of all members of Parliament and parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered and knowingly colluded with foreign powers. My sub-amendment to this would read as follows: that the government release the names of all members of Parliament and all parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered and knowingly colluded with foreign powers while protecting national security and those who gathered the intelligence. Jenny Kwan, our leader, have said it very much on the record. We would love for the Canadian public to know these names. I hate the fact that I have to serve in the House of Commons with this cloud of suspicion hanging over us. I think Canadians deserve to know. I mean, this caused a huge uproar when that NSICOP report was released in June. But we also have to respect the very real concerns that our intelligence community has repeatedly relayed to this community and to this committee and to its members. And so I do believe that if there is a way of publicly releasing these names, it needs to be done in a very careful fashion, and it needs to be done in a way that is fully coordinated with our national security and intelligence partners on this file. I am not going to support just simply releasing the names with no context, but I will support a non-political, professional way of releasing the names that has the full support of members of the RCMP and CSIS. And if conservative members are willing to publicly say that they support the important work of those agencies, I hope they will support this sub-amendment to their amendment. I'll conclude there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. We are substantially over time, and we have our resources run out at 11:30. So I will suspend at this point. We will resume this discussion on Tuesday.